Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're continuing my exploration of all of the color seasons, and I finally made it to the summer seasons. So I started with the falls, I did the winters, and I did the springs. And yeah, it's been quite the journey. We're almost at the finish line. And yeah, it's been really fun. For anyone watching so far, you know what it's been all about. But for anybody new here, I'm looking at the color seasons because I think there's been a bit of a obsession over them on social media. And I've been there too. I've been like, what's my season? I need to find it out. And while, I think there's something to having colors that you find really make you feel healthy and confident, I do think that you can make any color season work for you if you just, if you know what you're wanting from a color palette. And I just think the rules aren't as strict as we need to make them. And I think color is just such a fun thing to explore in general. Along this series, I feel like I've had so many moments of oh, maybe I'm this because I love the look so much. But yeah, that's all related to this exploration because sometimes the impact of certain color isn't necessarily looking lively and healthy. Sometimes it's about looking dramatic. Sometimes it's about looking fierce. Sometimes it's about looking tired even. That can be a look. That can be a vibe. So anyway, we're in the summer season, so back into cool tones. And I'm going to start with true or cool summer. This one's characterized by the first thing you notice about the person is a coolness to their tones. But unlike the winter season, it's not as high contrast. Summer seasons have a bit more of that mutedness. So in this season, you're going to see coloring that's a little bit more ashy. Think of an ashy brown hair color, more mutedness and coolness in the eyes rather than that vibrance we saw in some of the springs and winter seasons. The contrast for true summer is medium. So it's not high contrast, but it's not necessarily super low contrast like the soft summer or soft spring. When I'm looking at the color palette, I'm thinking sort of mid-tone grays, taupey browns. You can play with cool blues. I like to think of in the summer after it rains, when things are sort of still overcast and stuff, but there is a bit of richness to the colors, but there's this haze in the air, sort of washing things out a little bit. I think that's a really beautiful way to connect with this color story. So I'm sort of going to use this look as a basis for what I'm doing today. I'm thinking a gray, sparkly eye, paired with a cool tone liner, a glossy lip. It'll be really pretty. I think this is a beautiful color season for taking some inspo for everyday looks, things more approachable because it's a little bit more muted. It's a little bit more approachable, right? I have in front of me a couple palettes. This one would be great for this, which is the Natasha Denona Glam palette. Especially this side, we've got a lot of those mid-tone grays and silvers. Nothing too dark, rich, or pigmented. But I want to see what I can get from this palette from Odin's Eye. Odin's Eye, it's the Norns palette. So there's this really pretty gray here, and then right here, a really shiny, sort of pewter silver. It looks like it has some reflect in it, a bluey kind of reflect. We'll see. So yeah, let's get into it. For blush, I have a couple in front of me, kind of on the fence about what to use. There's this Tower 28 blush in Office Hours. It's a mid-tone mauve. It definitely has that mutedness to it. And then I have the Say Dew blush in Chili. I might use this because it's just such a classic kind of pink. It's a little bit cool tone, not too vibrant. Can't remember if I've used this on the channel yet, so why not? I'm gonna put it on the back of my hand first. And then going in with the Rare Beauty blush brush. I find the Rare Beauty blush brush is really good for more liquidy formulas. It was formulated for the liquid blush from Rare Beauty, so that makes sense. I do have foundation on. I did my brows just with a taupey pencil rather than warming them up. So no bronzer today. Even though you would think when you hear summer season that that's going to be like the bronzy, beachy one, I like to think of it more of like the summer rain. Just taking my foundation brush to kind of meld it in a little bit more. Yeah, that's pretty. We'll leave it at that for now because this season isn't about too much vibrance or contrast, even though I like a lot of blush. Just quickly a little bit of powder. This is the One Size Loose powder, which has always been my favorite powder of all time. And I always get the mini one, but it lasts forever. Okay, I'm going to try a liquid highlighter today. This is from Lisa Eldridge. It's the Elevated Glow in the shade Pink Moon. It's not too pink at all. It's very subtle. I'm literally just going to put a tiny, tiny bit. Sometimes I find with liquid highlighters, it's almost like they can lift the foundation and blush a little. So I'm always careful to just use a little bit. Yeah, it does create a more natural looking finish or highlight. But you just want to be mindful of placement. Catriona Balfe, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but from Outlander, she always comes up for the summer seasons. I think she's a great example of it. Like some people argue she could be a winter, but she does have that sort of softness still. Even though there's like the darker hair, you can tell there's like some kind of less saturation in the skin tone. Oh, I'm also wearing one of the only cool toned shirts I have, with the exception of black. So sort of like, again, this mid-tone gray blue is perfect for the summer seasons. So yeah, I think I'm going to go into the Glam palette from Natasha Denona. First with this shade here. It's like a brighter gray. I think that'll just be a great starting point for the look. This is kind of starting out similar to how the True Winter started. I used this same brush to put a wash of gray on the lid for that, but we're going for those grays that are less vibrant. This is more of like a slightly darker gray on my skin tone. Almost with like a touch of taupe to it. Now I'm going to go in with this shade here from the Norns palette. It's called Optimism. Looks very shiny actually. Kind of looks like this. And I hope when I put it on the eye, it's going to translate as such. Oh, that is pretty. It is so sparkly. Oh yeah. I'll try and dim the lights later so you can really see the whole effect of this. The look I'm referencing, like I realized I didn't really have a glitter quite like that. It's clearly a liquid shadow. It's from Donni Davy, who does the Euphoria makeup, and I know her line of makeup, Half Magic Beauty, they have a lot of those liquid shadows, kind of chunkier glitters. I don't really have anything like that, but this is giving a bit of that effect. And I like that it isn't too bright, like a sort of white glitter might be. We're still staying in that zone of subdued tones. Wow, I've actually never used this shade before. My mom gave me this palette. She was like decluttering. I'm gonna do literally the same thing on the lower lash line. It's the base of the gray. Another thing about the color seasons, I am going to do a wrap-up video at the end, kind of going through what I've learned, going through all my looks, assessing what I liked and didn't like. But I've noted like online on a lot of like beauty like threads and comment sections, everyone like points out how like beauty standards these days really more are about the warm tones. Like sometimes finding cool tone palettes like is a bit harder. Well, it's not hard, but they release less often. I blame the Kardashians because like all those tones are very like autumny and like warm but muted. Just using my pinky. I'm not being precise. Just really want to get the glitter on there. I want to add a bit more dimension to this eye than in that photo because the shimmer is a bit more subdued. So I'm going to use outer eyelid from the Glam palette and just lean further into the grays to add a little bit more depth because we are looking at medium contrast. So I do want to make sure I get some depth into this. Okay, I think that's really pretty. I do notice that there's like a touch of gold in the shimmer too, so that's maybe moving a little bit further away from the coolness, but I think in general it's giving that impact we want of like a cool tone that's muted and not too high contrast. I'm just going to use that first shade I was using to help transition this darker satin shade a little bit more. Yeah, I want to pop some lashes on and yeah, we'll finish it off with some lips. Okay, here's the eye look done. Yeah, I think it's giving a touch of glam, but nothing too overwhelming. For the lips, I'm definitely going to lean into the cool tone liner. I do want to do one pass of color on the lips, just to give a touch of life to them. I don't want to look like too muted and washed out. So I'm going to go in with the Milk Jelly tint in the shade Splash. And this is pretty vibrant, but it builds up. So I'm just going to do a quick, that's it. Then I'm going in with Makeup Forever. Endless Cacao, can't go wrong. And like in that picture I'm referencing, I'm going to kind of make the liner obvious. This is the most difficult part of lining lips. I find it so easy to go a little bit too out. I almost always do. I'm trying to be mindful to keep it in. So like when my face is actually neutral, it's not like looking too overlined or dragged down. I'm going to use the side of the pencil to create a bit of a gradient. Now this is Patrick Ta Major Glow Lip Shine. It's very sparkly. Now here's the finished look. Yeah, it's pretty. It's soft with a touch of glam. I have to say though, there is always something about this kind of like gray that, I don't know, I find looks a little bit lackluster on my complexion. Maybe that's just my personal taste. I do like to opt for a bit more vibrancy. I like when the eyes either like have a grungy element to them or are kind of really open and ethereal. Whereas sometimes these mid-tone grays I find like kind of wash me out in a way. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my makeup style and not necessarily a bad thing. Some people like that, right? I'm going to turn the lights down so you can see the glitziness. Yeah, so that's it for the true cool summer. Let me know in the comments down below if any of you gravitate towards these color stories. I can definitely see how on certain complexions, especially if you have sort of that ashy hair, how the gray tones can really create a harmony with them. I think maybe it's something about the red hair that feels like it's not that they're competing, but I just find it's not enough to bring some life to my like eyes and complexion, but maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think. And yeah, stay tuned for the last 2 seasons and then my whole wrap up report. We're going to talk through it all. We're going to see if we've come to any new conclusions. And yeah, that's it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay witchy, stay bitchy, and I'll see you next time. Bye, witches.